We good? All right. Let's see. I'm going to do. Welcome, everyone. Happy to see some people. I hope that people are also joining us on Facebook so that we can talk a little bit more about the current status of the Klamath Dam Removal Project, learn a little bit about what we can do to take action, and then hear from some of the people who have been involved with this for numerous years. I'm happy to see some people here tonight. I know that we're always busy and overwhelmed. We're also in the midst of summer, that there's many things going on in our communities right now. And we want to acknowledge that sometimes people are dealing with those things like on the ground. So they're dealing with some of the issues that we have because of these dams and also because of all the other environmental issues that we're sort of up against. We may not tonight be able to hear from representatives from the Klamath tribes or region because there is a fire currently going on. So we want to send good thoughts and prayers to those who are dealing with fires right now, especially because we know in this time fires are, running really rampant and sometimes getting way out of control. And we look forward to a day when we're able to practice our indigenous fire management practices and build up, fire futures that really acknowledge that all of these things are interconnected. The way we treat our water, the way we treat our fish, the way we treat our more than human relatives, and then the way we're able to manage through fire. So I just wanted to take a quick moment to say welcome. I'm Dr. Kutcher Risling Baldy. I'm the Department Chair of Native American Studies at Humboldt State University, and I'm also a board member of Save California Salmon, the organization that's hosting this event and this opportunity to learn more about how to take action to really support the continued plan to remove the Klamath dams and actually free our rivers and help to bring back some of the things that we talk about in our communities. I grew up along the rivers, and I can tell you all I've ever heard are the stories about how plentiful the salmon were, the ways in which the waters have cared for us our whole lives. And when we see the river sick and the salmon struggling, and stories that are coming out in the daily newspapers about the potentiality of the extinction events for our salmon relatives, this means that we are called to action, that we're called to a place that we need to make sure that we can take care of our salmon, because our salmon are always taking care of us, and they always make sure that they find a way to take care of us. So we have a responsibility to them, because from the beginning of time, they have made it a point to have a responsibility for us, to nourish us, to make our environment better. Salmon are a keystone species that really our ecosystem relies on them, and we know that as Native people. So we're looking forward to sharing some resources with you, to giving you an update, and to helping you prepare for potentially testifying or sending in public testimony on behalf of the Klamath Dam removal. I wanted to share with you a post that was made by Save California Salmon. I think that one of the people in here can actually share links via Facebook and also here in the chat. If you link to the Save California Salmon Instagram or the Save California Salmon Facebook page, this information is actually up there. You'll be able to very quickly see some really clear ways that you can take action to undam the Klamath. And we're going to talk a lot more about these issues, but just to note that the Ferc public Zoom meetings on the National Environmental Policy Act analysis for dam removal for the Klamath dams are happening July 20th through 22nd from 6 to 9 p.m. And this is an opportunity for people to publicly speak out in favor of dam removal. And I will tell you that as someone who has really been seeing the activity that has happened in our communities, it is very important when people come, show up, and make their testimonies and statements, especially when we can show that people are really on board with dam removal, that it's something very, very important to them. And not just Native people, but everyone, that this is going to be beneficial for everyone. So tonight we want to give you the information that you'll need to understand how to testify, how to show support for the work that's going on with Save California Salmon, and how to make sure that we get these dams removed. Because they're always putting up one more step, right? They're always like, there's always one more step. Every time we think we're there and we're close enough, they're like, no, there's one more thing you have to do. There's one more thing you have to do before we can actually take these dams down. And we're ready for dam removal. We've been ready. We know that it's going to be a process that's going to make our whole landscape better and more healthier. Our future generations are ready. So I think that now what we have to do is step forward and say, we're not going to let this get lost in bureaucracy. We're going to make sure that these things happen. There's been a very historic agreement that's on the table for dam removal. We need to show up, testify, and make sure that it happens. So before we get started with people sharing a little bit about how you can participate, some things they'd like you to know, telling you a little bit about where we are right now, I wanted to just share with you a very quick short video that is available via YouTube, an opportunity to kind of see a little bit about the Klamath dams, the Klamath River, hear from some people. I think it's a good way to get started, to get us all in the same place so that we can see the region that we're talking about and that we're hoping to really move for dam removal for.
Klamath's unique for a lot of different reasons. One of them is the size. It's just huge. I mean, these dams are 190 miles out from the ocean. I mean, it's just a big watershed. It was the third largest salmon producer on the entire West Coast.
Thousands of sport-loving Californians prefer to catch their own dinners. Here at the mouth of the Klamath River, when the salmon are running, the air is filled with the low mutter of idling outboard motors and the creak of oarlocks, as the sport fishermen try their luck against one of the fightingest fish in the sea.
I like to think of the salmon coming up the river to sustain our lives. That's what we pray for in ceremony. We're praying for their return because they give us life. I think the dams, since they were installed decades ago, have caused irreparable damage in the ecosystem, but the fish kill is what catapulted everyone into code red. I've always thought science is literally under a microscope, and that's not how these river systems work. Everything is so interdependent on everything else. It's time we start looking at the ecosystem as a whole.
I'm Bruce Gordon, and I'm the president and founder of EcoFlight. Hello. We're going to take a look at some of these dams up on the Klamath. My name is Mike Belchbeck, your water policy analyst for the Yurok tribe, and I've been working on dam removal for about 18 years.
Yeah, Mike, if I understand everything correctly, the dam removal is completely funded, then what's the hang-up?
There's plenty of money to do the job if everything goes right. The question being asked is, what if something goes wrong? Who covers the liability? You can't just go to State Farm and buy dam removal insurance.
I guess that's right. So the federal government wants to ensure all possibilities for, huh? Barry, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
My name is Barry McCovey. I'm a fisheries biologist, a tribal member with the Yurok tribe.
Worked extensively in the area, around the dams, and on the dams, below the dams. So I've been in the area hundreds of times. I've never seen them from the air.
See where the algae starts right there? You can see it blooming just as soon as it gets into the lake.
Oh my goodness, look at that.
Hey, that's very telling of what's going on in the lakes. And of course that stuff would not exist in a free-flowing river.
Absolutely not.
What we're really talking about here is dam removal is the path forward for these fish to escape extinction.
Listen curious 761 X-ray Echo Tower, turn left on Bravo, taxi to park and via Bravo. Remain my frequency in the park and have a good day.
Fish are obviously one of the most important aspects of this whole endeavor, but it's bigger than just fish. It's reopening a flow of energy from downriver to upriver and upriver to downriver. We're allowing marine nutrients to once again be transported upstream of these dams and up into the upper basin. Reopening those energy flow channels is a way of restoring balance. That's kind of what our obligation is as tribal members, is to try and restore balance to the natural habitats. Dam removal is fulfilling something that's very innate and in our nature to do.
The dams coming down can be a way to break down the barriers that have kept our people from flourishing as communities. I think there's a real chance for healing in this basin.
So just to let everyone know, that particular video is, let's see, just about a year old now. So there's some updates that we'll be giving, but I think it gives a good idea of the area we're talking about, some of the people who have been involved, and some of the things that I think are really important about dam removal. So we're going to be able to hear from people who are here so that they can tell you about why it's important to participate in this process, what it means that there's an upcoming hearing, and how we can make sure that dam removal still happens and that it happens quickly. So I'm going to see, is there anybody who wants to speak first or has something that they want to make sure people who are on the live or who are here in the Zoom tonight hear about dam removal? We don't really have an order, but is there anyone who would like to go and say, I have a few things I'd like to tell you about what it means, what dam removal means to you, why it's important, or what you think people should think about if they're thinking about testifying or going to the Ferc hearings to make sure that these things happen. Regina, did you want to go first or? Oh.
Yeah, I was hoping that Analia would go first to give some history, and she seems to want to, so yay.
I'm ready, you know. Yeah, so thank you, Walk Cloud. Thank you for that great introduction, and I'm really excited to be here tonight on this platform and encouraging people to participate in this process. I mean, this has been a long time coming, you know, and just looking at that video, you know, some of that commercial fisheries, you know, people catching their dinner on the Klamath, you know, it just made me think about the long history of abuse that our river has taken since colonization. And you know, it started in the 1800s and early 1900s with the industrial commercial fishing and the depletion of our salmon. You know, billions of tons of fish, you know, got shipped to the Bay Area and sold, you know, and that was really the beginning of the depletion of our salmon. And then, you know, the dams were built, which they never should have been. And, you know, and we have all seen the results. And here we are today in this world that's, you know, in climate crisis here because of these decisions and choices that colonizers have made and imposed on our land and our resources and our you know, our spiritual places, you know, and we're seeing the effects today, you know, and we're hoping that it's not too late, that changes like dam removal will bring hope to our next generations. So yeah, this, dam removal has been a long time coming, and we really, like Ali was saying in the video, it really, kicked off in 2002 with the big fish kill. That time broke a lot of people's hearts. It was devastating, and just realizing, hey, we're not going to take this anymore, and we're going to take back our river and our watershed, and we're going to take care of it like it should be. But it has been a battle. It has been a fight. We've been up and down. Our tribes haven't always agreed. We've fought with the farmers, but a lot of good has come with it, and a lot of good relationships have been built. It's just been a long journey, and we weren't sure we would ever see this day. And I'm really thankful that, I'm not going to have to travel to Sacramento anymore and have rallies. And, because I don't want to be a professional protester. That's not what we're here for. We're here to take care of our river. We're here to love it. We're here to, we're part of it. Our people, we're part of this ecosystem, and and so that's just what we do. But yeah, if we could just live here, that would be great. We don't have to fight all the time. So I'm excited. I'm really happy that we're at this point in this process. And so, I just want to encourage people that this commenting period with the Ferc and on the NEPA is such an important part of the process. We've been through it a million times. I'm sure Regina will break down exactly how many times we've gone through this, but it feels like too many. We've said it over and over again, but this is hopefully the last time that we have to say it again, to get our point across of how important dam removal is to our river's health, to restore our river, to restore it to where it's supposed to be, and to express how important dam removal is to our cultural well-being, and to the salmon, of course. So yeah, I just want to encourage everyone, take part, say your piece. We don't want to hold up the process, but we definitely want to encourage it to go through. So I just want to thank everyone who's listening, encourage you to show up to those hearings and make a testimony, give your your public comment, because it's always been a really important part of this process. And again, I hope this is the last time we ever have to do this for dam removal. So I'm looking forward to it. Set it free in 23. Let's do this. All right. Walk cloud.
Thank you so much. I think it's really important to hear from the people who have really been doing this work for a long time. And I always say to people, like, doing this work in a very honest way. It's not how you make a bunch of money. It's not how you sort of like build a career. It's really about what this means for our peoples and our generations, and what we're doing, like, to make sure that future generations are taken care of. And the fact that Native people have always put themselves on the front lines of this political activism, I think demonstrates that, like, we need people who will in that, because we've been doing it for such a long time. I know that I think Danielle, I think you're here. Did you want to add anything or share anything for people who are listening or watching via Facebook Live about what dam removal means, why it's important, some things you think people should know about the things that are happening right now? I don't know if I see, is Danielle still here? Oh, there you
Hi,
are.
I'm on my sister's lap.
Okay.
Hi, my name's Danielle Frank. I'm a member of the Hoopa tribe, and I just graduated from Hoopa High this year. I'm a youth intern with Save California Salmon, and to me, dam removal is so exciting. One second, Teresa, turn that off. Dam removal is so exciting because for so many reasons. I grew up listening to my dad and my grandparents talk about how the river used to be this big and it used to be so plentiful and full of resources, and it was how it was supposed to be. It was feeding our people and it was providing the life and healthiness into our valley it's supposed to, but that's not how it is anymore. I mean, by the end of summer, every year almost, we have a river of poison flowing through the heart of our valley. That's not healthy for our people. It's not healthy for our planet. It's not healthy for our culture, especially with that river of poison feeding our sticks and our baskets. We're not where we're supposed to be. We're not doing what we're supposed to be. And I'm really happy to see so many people fighting for the dams for so long, because it proves that we can turn this whole thing around. I mean, these fights for the dams have been going on for so long, and finally there's coming down. Finally, everything is getting done what it's supposed to. The licenses are being transferred, and it just shows like Native people have perseverance. Whatever problems we do face, we can surpass them if we work together and help take care of each other the way that we're supposed to. So I just like to thank everybody who is here listening, and thank everyone who's giving presentations and helping people stay educated on the topics that are super important to us.
Thanks. And I think what's really important is to know that the youth voice has always been a part of this movement and the things that people have been doing, and that the young people are right there. They're right there learning about. I mean, I know young people will show up and they will testify and they will talk in front of a room full of people who are not usually there in a very supportive way, and they will make sure to put themselves out there. And I see the growth in that happens. I'm so proud of young people that will use their voices, especially in things like public hearings. It's not easy. I don't have an easy time testifying at public hearings, and to watch young people do that, I always encourage young people to be the ones in the room speaking. It makes such a difference when they are there. When you are there and you are speaking and talking about your experience, what you're bringing into future generations, people listen. People listen to your voices, and so I admire those who have been able to show up for the river and for the salmon, and show up for the people, and sort of say, like, I'm going to speak on behalf of what's happening here. Um, let's see. I also want to say that I think it's really important because our young people give us perspective on time. And sometimes we sort of think things take such a long time to happen. And yet we know it's been a very short period of time that we've seen this really awful change in our rivers. Because many of us can remember when the rivers were very different than they are today. And now our young people have lived in a time when their rivers aren't that way, and now they're going to see. I know they're going to see what it means to be post this period of time, post dam removal, and that makes me very excited for them. That they're going to be able to tell stories to their kids and grandkids about when they remember what they remember, and then when it came down and what that meant and what that felt like, and making that moment possible is really important, because we were told for a long time that getting the dams removed would be impossible, that's an impossible thing. And I think that we have to remember that they always tell you things are impossible, but we know that we can make it possible. That if we keep pushing, we'll make it possible. So we're depending on everyone here. We're depending on people who are going to watch this video later. If you can, please remember that there is an upcoming hearing, that they need to hear from people that they want the dams removed, that those dams need to be removed as soon as possible, that we are able to say that this is going to benefit everyone. And would appreciate everyone getting involved and finding some way to testify and to participate. So I think we're going to pass it on to Regina, who's going to tell us a little bit about these upcoming Ferc hearings and how we can participate in this.
All right, well, thank you so much, Katja. And if I start cutting out, please let me know. I live in New Orleans and we do not have very fast internet. And I have a presentation today, and it does have a lot of links. It kind of explains what the Ferc process is in this situation. Like Analia said, We've been working on this now for almost 20 years. The first time I went to a Ferc scoping hearing on the dams, I think was 2004. This is the third federal public process that is going through the NEPA process, which is the law on federal processes. But and then I think it's gone through the state process of for getting a license now twice. So there has been dozens and dozens of studies on why these dams should be removed. And there is, I think, 46 different management plans on how they would be removed and how every single detail would happen. This has been one of the most analyzed projects in environmental history. And it's unfortunate it's taken this long, but this is also the biggest dam removal that has ever happened in the history of the world. And it's happening because of the tribes that have fought so hard to make it happen, the tribal scientists and the community activists that went to Omaha, and they took on Warren Buffett, and they took on the owners before that, Scottish Power, and we have gone to hearings to defend whether or not fish passage is important, whether or not salmon have ever been in the upper basin. There are so many studies. So definitely our message is, all the studies exist. This has been analyzed. This needs to happen quickly. Just because there's some kind of more right-wing voices out there, like the Bundys that are in the upper basin right now that are saying dam removal is bad. It's not true. These dams do not provide for irrigation. They do not provide for flood control. All they provide is a very small amount of power that the company did not think was worth it to keep. The states have also said it's not worth keeping this power, both Oregon and California, through their public utilities commissions. The states have issued licenses for removing the dams already. So there will be a couple processes after this Ferc process, but this is the last step, and we need it to happen quickly, or the Klamath will not be free by 2023. It'll be free in 2024 or 25. And meanwhile, we're losing the salmon, and the salmon numbers have gone down really a lot. So I'm going to share my presentation really quickly, and it'll go through how this process works. It's not going to be an empowering process, unfortunately, because it's a Ferc Zoom call. So we're pretty much going to be calling in, staying on hold, and waiting for a court reporter to write down our comments. But at least we can play with our kids in the meanwhile. And then also we can also submit written comments, and that is kind of a process. It's not just writing a letter, unfortunately, but we're going to share those links with you now. So I'm going to share my screen. I do not see the button for that though. Oh, here it is. Okay. Can you all see my screen? Yes?
Yep, we can see it.
Okay. Oh, so this is just the opening of the presentation, and is just to show some of the action that's happened for the river, which we've already talked about. So we don't need to go into that very much. But yeah, so like I said, this has been going on for so long. I'm pretty sure the first public scoping notice was issued in 2004, but the process has been going on since 2002. So there have been so many studies. There have been corporate campaigns, there have been community actions, there have been hundreds and hundreds of people that have testified. Several of the youth that are on this call, I've known since they were little kids that have been going to these hearings and testifying. We've lost elders during this process. It's been 20 years and we're ready. This needs to happen. Okay. And so there was an EIS for a secretarial determination that happened when there was an agreement on dam removal in 2010. There was an EIS before that, and all of the studies say that dam removal is good for water quality, it's good for salmon, it will help get rid of toxic algae, it can be done within the budget available by the Klamath River Renewal Corporation. And I mean, this is a well planned out project. No matter what anyone might try to say, there are not new issues to figure out in this situation. And the reason, as a lot of you know, that we started this is because of the Klamath River fish kill in 2002. Or tribes, of course, have been fighting for these rivers for hundreds of years, but for the Klamath Dam removal campaign to get these dams out, they were put in without any environmental laws applying, without tribal trust responsibilities applying. So they've been killing the fish for a long time, and they're not the sole reason for the adult fish kills, but they do warm up the river, and they do make it so that the salmon have more of a possibility of dying. But for the juvenile fish kills, which I'm sure Mike Belchbeck will talk about more, and he's our next speaker from the Yurok tribe, these dams are why the juvenile fish kills are happening. The river is not being scoured. It's very warm. There's a lot of algae, and that is making it so that fish diseases are spreading to the juvenile salmon. And we've lost almost all of them this year. And we lost most of all of them several other years. So that's why we have such low salmon returns right now. So dam removal, even in drought years, will help our salmon survive. And people might try to be like, oh, what about the drought? What about water storage? But these dams don't provide for water storage, and they don't help in drought situations. And this is just a chart of how many salmon we're losing. I mean, even in 2000 and 2002, our numbers were not great when we were started this work out, but they are really bad right now. I think the commercial fishery is shut down this year. This has got to be somewhat like the 4th or 5th year that they've been shut down since this campaign, or since this work began to take the dams down. No one can fish in the ocean. Tribal members are only allotted, I think, 1 fish per tribal member this year. Karuk fishermen don't get fish a lot of years at all up where I live. So yeah, we need this to happen soon. We are looking, especially with spring Chinook salmon, we're looking at possible extinction if something does not happen soon, because the spring Chinook need the upper basins and that cold water in order to survive. But the juvenile salmon are dying too for the other runs. So these dams do need to come down soon. So on to Ferc. An environmental impact statement is what they're doing. This is the scoping process. So all it means is that we're supposed to let them know what the issues are. They know what the issues are. So we just need to stick to, you've studied dam removal. So there's so many studies, there's so much in the Ferc record. Please rely on the studies that you have and get these dams out as quickly as possible. We don't need any more delays. We don't need any more studies. The studies have even, a lot of them have been through peer review. They've been through like massive court processes to show that the science is good science. So this is pretty much saying the same thing. And so the way that the EIS process works is there will be a scope and comment period, and then there will be an environmental analysis called an environmental impact statement that's released. And then there will be hopefully a decision notice released. And so there'll be 2 public comment periods. We are expecting some comments from people who are just opposed to anything that's good for the environment. But they're not right on, they don't have science on their side. They're not right on their talking points. So that's why we're just asking people to be involved, because we need those voices saying this needs to happen. We've worked decades on this. The tribes have fought for this for so long. Make it go forward. So what does dam removal do for the river? Well, it'll make it so that the toxic algae blooms that now make the river unusable for a lot of people no longer happen in the way that they do now. These dams are kind of like a giant bathtub that collect nutrients and release toxic algae into the river. Numerous studies have proven these dams are what is causing this toxic algae problem. And this is actually a picture of river water behind the dams on this slide. So this is a big deal. The river has had toxic algae blooms that are up to 4,000 times what is safe for humans to touch. And this is a very potent liver toxin that we're dealing with on the river, microcystin. So it's poisonous. And there are tribes that actually their ceremonies include being in the river during the time when these toxic algae blooms are happening, and fishermen and kids that use the river, dogs are all being exposed to this, and it can cause serious health issues. So, you know, if you do feel like you need to bring a couple talking points up of what's been studied, one, dam removal improves the river's water quality, it'll make it colder, and it will deal with the toxic algae problem. And this is just a picture of what the river what the dams look like at times. So dam removal supports tribal cultures. We've seen a 90% decline in salmon populations in a very short time. And that means people don't have food to eat. This is a very rural area. So there's not a store that you can just go to get salmon, and people rely on the salmon for their food, for their jobs. So that's a very important point. Also, that we are losing 95% of the juvenile salmon because the dam's a lot of years, which means that 3 and 4 years later, there's going to be no salmon for people to eat. I mean, this is just a picture of people fishing. And then Frankie Myers just texted he's not able to make it tonight, the vice chairman of the Yurok tribe. Oh, sorry. But he has brought up a really good point that the health of the river is really connected to the health of the people, and dam removal can bring healing to people, and it's a way to right historical wrongs. It's time that I know that a lot of people are talking about, it's time to start returning land and returning water, and returning salmon needs to be part of that process of making things right. So what can you do? These are some links to our link tree, which has information on how to get do the public process. I'm also going to share the links in these slides though, because what I'm hoping is I can leave some of these slides on for a minute, and you could actually get on the Ferc website and actually register so that you can comment. Unfortunately, like I said, this isn't just sending an email. You can send a letter, but you actually have to include a docket number, and you have to register in order to use their online system. So if you're going to call in next week, the hearings are on the 20th, the 21st, and the 22nd. They're at 6 to 8. What you can expect is to call in, put in a passcode, and then you will be put on hold. You will have only 3 minutes to give your comments. So that's why we only brought up a couple of talking points. But the main talking point is that this needs to happen quickly. The studies have been done. It's time to move forward. So we need you to also share this with your friends and make sure that people do show up and do comment in support of dam removal. But also stay focused on the talking points. Do bring up your personal stories, but bring it up like, we need dam removal to happen because there's toxic algae in the river, and this is affecting me in this way. And I know that if you take the dams down, the toxic algae will no longer be an issue. So stick to the things that have come up in the past that have been studied at length, rather than bringing up tons of new issues and new things that you're worried about. Because believe me, if there's something you're worried about, it's been studied in this process. So a reporter is going to transcribe what you say, and then that'll be entered into a public record. And that's how the decision is made based on the science, but it's really good to have lots of good comments within the public record. So, and this slide is a little bit, a lot, but Reconnect Klamath and CaliforniaSalmon.org have the step-by-step guide on how to do your comments. And there are links here, and I'm hoping that Carrie can drop them in the chat. But for personal comments, you're going to want to go to this, this link right here, the Ferc website link. And these comments need to be, I think, under 5,000 characters. Someone might correct me, but they're just comments from you. So if you have more at length comments and you want to do written comments, then you'll have to actually go to this other registration site. And that is for organizations and people that are going to do very lengthy comments. So for the people who are going to enter scientific studies into the record, or the tribes and people like that who are doing Save California Salmon that might do longer comments, that is how, that's the link that we're going to use. And so the way that it works is that you have to register, you get an email sent back to you, and then you can submit your comments. And it's not great or fun, but it's really important that you also have your docket numbers in there, because if not, it's not going to say submit your Klamath Dam removal comments. You're going to have to actually put the docket numbers in order to be able to get into the site. This presentation will be online, so you can watch it and pause at this point, or you can go to reconnectklamath.org, or you can go to klamathsalmon.org, and there will be these step-by-step instructions. And if people right now want to go and do that, then please do. You can do comments now. You don't have to do it verbally. Everyone has different ways they like to do things. Some people are verbal people. Some people like to write what they want to present. So yeah, so please do. But what is different in this process too is a lot of times we work, Danielle and I and Lemony, and we all work with a lot of youth, and sometimes they get nervous about talking out loud in front of a lot of people. And this is a Zoom process where you won't be talking out loud in front of a lot of people. So there's really no need to get nervous about the public speaking part of it. So this is a sample letter, and it's available on Reconnect Klamath. And it just says something like, I'm a person who lives in the Klamath River, and I urgently request that Ferc take action. And it pretty much says that, Pacific Corp wants the dams out. They have transferred the license to the Klamath River Renewal Corporation and the states of California and Oregon for the purpose of decommissioning the dams. So this needs to happen quickly because we are losing our salmon. The dams are warming up the river. They are causing toxic algae. And then add a little bit about personally how it affects you if you'd like, both in your written comments and in your verbal comments. And you can say, the reason I don't want this to go on any longer is I've been suffering for decades, and I'm a fisherman or a ceremonial person, a river guide, however this affects you, even if you're just like, because I support Native people, then you can add that there if you'd like. Just don't bring up tons of new issues that just sound confusing. Stay on topic. Don't be like, and I'm so concerned that there's climate change and fires and things like that. Because of course, those are very important issues, but they don't have anything to do with dam removal. So just stick to what is actually about dam removal, because that's what this is about, especially a scoping process. It's only about what matters for the scoping process, what matters for dam removal. So yeah, it's just put that this needs to happen quickly. We cannot wait. That's the main point. And I'm pretty sure that's my last slide. So I am going to get off of the screen share, and hopefully we can now hear from Michael Belchbeck, who is the Yurok tribe's former chief biologist and I think current policy analyst. And he can introduce himself in a way that's actually correct.
Senior policy analyst, because I'm old now. So I agree. Now Mike Belchbeck. Today is actually marks my 26th anniversary of the day I started working for the Yurok tribe. I started on July 15th, 1995. So happy birthday to me. And so all of what Regina said is true. In the beginning, when Ferc was ready to steamroll us and approve relicensing these dams without taking them out, our Ferc scoping comments said, wait a minute, you haven't done this study, you haven't done that, you need to look at this. For example, they hadn't looked at environmental justice. They hadn't looked at cultural riverscape issues and things like that. And now things are different. A lot has happened, a lot of work has happened. And thanks to activists, tribal members, young people, people that went to Omaha, Scotland, as well as the science, the behind the scenes kind of things, setting it up so that we just whoop their butt and coordinate. And when they were trying to say that they shouldn't have to put in fish passage, which would be more expensive than taking the dams out. And when they lost that court case, it set the stage for negotiating with the company to bring the dams out. And at this point, we've come a really long way, and this deal has almost fallen apart about 3 or 4 different times, and the tribes have rescued it every time. Other folks didn't have the heart to see it through, and were ready to give up, and not the tribes. And that happened again this last year when we rescued it one last time and convinced the states to come in. So where we're at right now is that I know the sample letter said we urge you to approve the transfer, but Ferc has approved the transfer right now. And what they're going to do this EIS on is the surrender order. And so what that means is when the company surrenders the license to Ferc, and then Ferc will order the removal of the dams under certain conditions. So what NEPA scoping is here is scoping, the word comes from like viewing, telescope, like looking at or viewing. And all NEPA scoping is identifying issues. Usually, for some big project like this, you do a scoping and you say, okay, everybody, what issues should we look at? The people say, we should talk about, the effects to the river, and you need to look at toxic algae, and you need to look at the fish disease and how it's killing the fish, and things that you think they probably wouldn't cover otherwise. And you're bringing it up in scoping, and it makes it difficult for them to like sweep it under the rug after that. But this one's a lot different. We have looked at everything, and we've looked at everything too much. There's been way too much study, and I'm a scientist, right? I'm the kind of guy who usually says, oh, we need more study. Well, we don't need more study here. We know what's going on here. And what this is here, this is a fish restoration project. And the way it's being treated, and I've had to comment on the EIR done for the clean water quality. Remember, we had those hearings a couple of years ago in Arcata. The state of California was like, well, we're thinking of giving them a water quality permit to discharge all the sediment when they remove these dams and things like that. This one's different in that they are about ready to do the right thing. This time we have the company behind there, and whereas I'll just tell you, like before the Yurok tribe requested government to government with Ferc, and they actually denied us last year. They're like, no, we heard from you guys before. We don't need to hear you again. It's kind of stunning, actually. They didn't even want to talk with us. To, once you get corporate America behind you, in this case, Berkshire Hathaway, I think they sincerely want these dams out. Suddenly, we got a call like, hey, we got the Ferc commissioners on the phone. Do you want to talk with them directly? And we did talk with them earlier this year. And what the Ferc commissioners themselves said is, this is a really exciting project. When do you guys want this transfer approved? This is a really big difference between the stance that we had in the past and what we're dealing with right now. So, I'm working on drafting comments along with our team, with Vice Chairman, with Amy Cordalis and our team for the written comments. And what we're saying, there's a couple things. One is that Ferc timeline is to have the EIS done in September of 2022. We need that to be done in April. September is not soon enough. There's a lot of work that has to begin on the dam removal before the drawdown begins on January 1st, 2023. So we need it to happen in April. So one thing that would be good to bring them up is that we need you to fix the timeline so that removal can stay on track for 2023. And so a lot of people are tempted to look at this like, oh, well, you're going to take a timeline that works from now till next September, which is what, 14 months, and you need to shorten it to 9 months. And we're like, no, this is a 20-year process, and we need you to finish it on time, and it's doable. You need to finish it on time. Ferc needs to finish this EIS by April, and they can do that without shortcutting any quality, because we have 20,000 pages of studies. Regina's right. There's 46 management plans. So I think what a lot of dam removal opponents are going to do is like, hey, you guys didn't think of like firefighting. How are the helicopters going to fill up their buckets? There's going to be no lakes there. You didn't think of that. Ha, checkmate. The dam's got to stay in, But in fact, those things have been thought of. Specifically, the fire plan, management plan has been approved by both California Department of forestry, CDF, and or their counterparts in Oregon, and so on. All the other plans, terrestrial wildlife, aquatic resources, restoration plans. What about the reservoir footprint, controlling invasive weeds? What about the houses along there? What about their wells? You know, the ones that are on Copco right now, and so forth. And I think, you know, you only get 3 minutes on verbal comments. That is really short. I would pick 3 main points, speak from your heart, pick 3 main points and make them. So I would be saying, you know, not to put words in anybody's mouth, but like, this really matters to me. This really impacts tribal life. That would be point number 1. Point number 2, you need to compress the timeline so we can get it done on time. And then point number 3, like, I don't know, like, we're sick of toxic algae in our river. These dams need to go, or, you know, but I would definitely be picking 3 main points, and then practice before you get on the phone with those guys, like practice with your brother or sister or your friend or something like that. Set a phone timer and try to just get it to where you can finish up in 3 minutes without getting rushed or get cut off at the end. Regina's right. It's really disempowering. I've, you know, with the state of California, I watched them cut the tribal chairman off. I watched him cut his microphone after 3 minutes. I've never seen anything that disrespectful, you know, and that's how these people are. They're like, well, we got a lot of speakers. We're just going to cut people off after 3 minutes. So practice up. Consider doing written comments. The personal comments aren't, you know, they're not easy to do, but they're doable. And if you need help, you got resources. You can email me or Regina or something. We'll get you through the process, because it's important that we're all heard from. So, you know, I guess in closing, I'd say that, you know, the road from when we started, and I was one of the OG crew that started back in the early 2000s when Pacifico rolled into town, and it was only us and the Karuk and Hoopa tribe that said, hey, you know, we should be taking these dams out. And there wasn't one person from the state, federal, or company that was agreeing with us. Maybe like a smattering, like a couple of environmental groups, you know, were like, yeah, maybe that would be a good thing. And how we slowly built momentum, how we set, you know, we strategically developed the science and the policy record and everything. And then the direct action, Omaha, and the trips to Scotland, the Sacramento, Portland, and most recently at Klamath Glen, you know, when the company came in November. You know, these things are all really important. It took everybody all pulling together towards one goal to make this happen. And we're almost at the finish line. And so that's, you know, that's the gist of our comments that we're writing is like, look, you're almost at the finish line, compress your timeline, keep us on track for 2023, and let's get these dams out of here. It's the largest fish restoration project in the history of the world, and it's time to do it. Thank you.
Thanks so much. And I think there's so many important things to consider in there, especially concerning the fact that this is a very well-studied area. It's a very well-studied project. And I think that's something people need to keep bringing up. And also that they have been studying dam removal around the world. And I feel like they have several examples of dam removal projects that have gone really well. And so I think we have some of the greatest minds on this, and we're able to move this forward. And I always say that the thing about the people doing this type of work, we do always have to have all the answers up front, because whenever we don't have an answer, then they're like, see, you don't have that answer. That means we don't have to do this thing. So just keep in mind that we need people to remind them that we've been doing this work for 20, 30 years to make sure that when this happens, it happens in a good way. And we're always thinking much longer term what in a good way means. We're also thinking about the next generations and the generations after that, and what that's going to mean for our generations upon generations of not just people, but our salmon. So keep that in mind as you think about why it's so important for us to be a part of these testimonies, and tell them that we don't need to do the studies. We need to get the dams taken down. We're at a crisis level with our salmon, and I hate to keep bringing that up, but it is so, it's right of the moment. There's plenty of press releases that have come from the Yurok tribe specifically talking about their concerns with the juvenile salmon right now. and what's happening with the juvenile salmon population. And we need to make sure that we think about that in terms of what that means for the future of salmon, and how that is really tied to what's happening in our rivers and what's happening with our water. So we need to remember that this is the time. This is the time for us to do action. I know that John, you wanted to talk and say a few things too. So I don't know if you want to turn your camera on, or if you were able to sort of log in and say a few words.
It'd be my honor. Thank you, Katja. I have really bad internet, so my bandwidth is low. I don't want to get disconnected, or I think audio is more important. I'm calling in today from unceded territory of Nisenan in so-called Grass Valley. I grew up on Kidder Creek, a tributary of the Scott River, which is a tributary of the Klamath. So this has been a conversation I've been having for 40 some years now. I have always sided with the tribes my entire life, and living in Siskiyou County, it was a constant fight, as all of you know. The farmers and ranchers, they could be pretty stubborn about this issue, but I stuck to the guns, and I'm here to do whatever the elders ask of me. So I just wanted to say that I'm here in service. Anything you need, don't hesitate to ask.
Well, thanks so much. And I hope everyone who was able to join us today via Zoom or on Facebook Live, just know that this video is going to be up on the Facebook of the Save California Salmon. And if you want to make sure that people that you work with, people that you're involved with, are able to watch it and get a sense of how they can participate, I will say that participating in public hearings is important, and getting those voices there is important. I have seen people change their minds in those meetings. I have seen people hear things that they had never thought of before, and brought that back into agencies and things that hadn't heard about the issues that are being brought up by the people. And if we can make sure that we have a good, solid representation there, I think it's really helpful. And the fact that it's on Zoom, I think, adds something to it, because for so long we would have to raise the money. We'd have to find some way to get people to the meetings that were often in Sacramento, far away from where the Klamath River is, right? Far away from where the people are. And now we have an opportunity to participate. So I can't encourage people enough to think about how they can sign up, how they can get involved, and to remind people a couple of things. Again, I'll share my screen so we can see it very quickly. To remind a couple things, being able to testify on behalf of taking down the Klamath dams at the Ferc public Zoom meetings are July 20th through 22nd, 6 to 9 p.m. This is where they will want to hear about what people think should happen with Klamath dam removal, especially regarding further studies and the Ferc process. We're encouraging people to please sign up and find a way to say that, you know, we've got to move this process forward. It's time. It's time for dam removal. Again, Save California Salmon has provided some really great talking points, some ways of engaging, but I think some of the most important things for us to keep in mind is that this is coming up quite soon, and we need to be able to participate. We have the links to be able to sign up. You can send in your testimony. And young people, please, please remember that your voices are so important to this process, and that we need to hear from you. We need the young people to show up and talk about what this means to them, because you all have a different experience than we do in terms of understanding what it's like to live in this place and in this way with our fish in this state. And you can start to see what it's like to look beyond that. And so we need your voices too. And don't think that you could not do it well, or that someone is going to be a better testimony than you are. Anything you have to say is important, and the ways that you need to say it. So we have shared many links and resources, but the best thing that I can say for people is to speak from your heart and experience, and remember to tell them how important dam removal is, not just to this region, but to the health of our entire ecosystems. Our salmon need us to fight for them. They were not given the same types of voices that we were given at the beginning of time, but they knew that we would take care of them, that we would say what needed to happen to protect them and make sure that they thrive. And I recently was writing about the importance of salmon, and what I said is, and something that Ali shared in the video we shared, we pray for salmon at all of our ceremonies. And one of the things we say is that we pray for their return and we pray for their health because they're our relatives. And we know that their return is what makes sure that the world is okay, which is why we need to make sure that they are okay. We need to be here to make sure that they are okay. So remember that kind of important interconnection is what's going to guide this process moving forward. We can't thank everyone enough for coming. If there is any way that you need to follow up, feel free to follow up with Save California Salmon. Please share their resources on Twitter, on Instagram. Encourage people you know to sign up, to show up, and to testify so that we can get these dams taken down. Let people know that this is the action that we want to take. In Hoopa, at the end, we say Hayanantik. That means like that's the end of it. It's over. But I will say it also means it reaches so far. Meaning that the things that we do, we hope reach far, far into the future, far into the next world, far into the places where we can get more people involved. So thank you everyone for joining us tonight to learn more about how we can participate and join in to get these dams taken down. Set me up.